Hello, my name is Natalia, and I'm a second year PhD student at Scripps Institution of Oceanography. I grew up in Ecuador in the coastal region of my home country, and from an early age, I was very lucky to be able to explore and learn more about the marine ecosystems of my home country. And one of the things that I learned was the importance of many of the ecosystems to many of the communities that live along the coastline. However, many of these ecosystems have been extremely impacted by humans. In some cases, there's been a lot of pollution, such as plastic, but other form of pollutions and excess of nutrients. And these systems right now are in a very kind of fragile stage because climate change is impacting those ecosystems, and it's changing its chemistry, its temperature, and this is having many consequences on many of the marine organisms that live in the ocean. And so I wanted to learn more about marine ecosystems, how they function, and how we can better protect them. So I did my undergrad in environmental biology at Columbia University in New York. And it was during my undergrad time that I kind of narrowed down to what were some of the research interests that I had. And so I volunteered in different kind of laboratories and did a lot of reading and just looking to see what was some of the current research and what were like the needs and what areas were we missing knowledge. And one of the things that I became very passionate about was microorganisms. And microorganisms are pretty cool. They are extremely abundant for once. For a very long time, we didn't even know how abundant they were. But because of the new technology like sequencing, we're now having able to sequence many of the marine microorganisms, and now we know they're extremely important. We know there's a huge biodiversity and that they play an essential role in maintaining the health of the oceans. And so this marine microorganisms is a huge group of bacteria, virus, archaea, and phytoplankton, and you can think of them as the biological energy of a system because they are constantly kind of changing the composition of certain elements in the ocean, and so they are transforming it in a way that is bioavailable for other organisms. So they're kind of at the base of the food web. And there are a lot of questions and unknowns that we don't really know. So we don't know how many of these microorganisms are going to respond to climate change or to other anthropogenic stressors. And so that's how I kind of started in the current project that I'm working on right now, which is looking at the impact of different stressors, particularly land use changes, in mangrove forests, and looking at the microbial community in this forest and seeing how they might be changing to different levels of perturbations. And so mangrove forests are these very important ecosystems that for a very long time they have been severely degraded due to urban development and also the expansion of shrimp aquaculture. And in many parts of the world, we have lost 40 to 50% of these mangrove forests. And we know that they play many important ecosystem services, such as they can serve as a habitat for many important and commercially fish species, but also endangered species. They can act as barriers against like storms, and they can also protect coastlines. But also importantly is that they play an important role in climate change mitigation. So they're known as this kind of blue carbon, and blue carbon just means carbon dioxide that has been taken from the atmosphere, but this marine ecosystem, and that's getting sort of trapped in the sediments. So there's been a lot of interest in the scientific community to kind of understand some of these processes and how mangrove forests might respond to climate change in the future. And a huge component is the microbial community. And so this is kind of how this project started, because we don't really know much about the microbes in the mangrove forest, and we know they're this very productive ecosystem. And so some of the major chemical and sort of nutrient recycling that is happening is carried by microorganisms such as bacteria and others. And so we wanted to understand what are the microbes that are there in the water, in the soil, what are they doing and how are they responding to different land use changes. And my favorite part about doing the work that I do is when I take a water sample and I look at it under the microscope, and it's just pretty cool. It's like it's a different universe. And one of the coolest things, like, so when you look at the ocean, you can't really see those microbes, but when you see them under the microscope, it's like an invisible world that comes to life. And that's, every time I go to a new place, I always like doing that, because it's just amazing to see that huge abundance of all those microbes that are in our marine ecosystems. I also enjoy the opportunity to be able to travel to different parts of the world and learn about different marine ecosystems, but also talking to the community and sort of understanding what is important for them, and getting their perspective on what are some of the changes that they have seen in their marine ecosystems for the past years. And some of my short terms and long terms. So my short term, and I hope to finish my PhD, and I want to continue doing academic research. So I hope to do a postdoc where I can continue doing research. And some of my long terms is to go back to South America and work in either a marine institute or a university, and continue doing research and finding ways to better protect our marine ecosystems. And advice that I have for you about kind of this whole process of how you become a marine biologist, and something that I want to say is that there is no right process, and people have all kind of different experience, and they can take different paths, so there's just no one way on how to do it. But something important is that you just you're open about different experience. So if you get the opportunity to volunteer in a lab, even if you don't feel that the work that they're doing might not be in your area of interest, you can still learn a lot of important skills that could later on help you. And so, yeah, be really open about the different experience. Be able to ask for help when you need. That's sort of something really important that I learned on the way, that sometimes things can be challenging and hard, and you could feel sometimes that you're lost, and be sometimes things overwhelming. And being able to find people that can guide you and give you support is extremely important. Another thing is that there is a lot of knowledge that the scientific community has produced over the past year, and like we know a lot more about our oceans than what we did before. And of course, there's a lot of areas that we're still trying to understand, but there's a lot of resources out there. So, go out there, read a lot of things about the ocean, find things that you're interested about, and and try to find who is doing that kind of science, and find ways to kind of connect with the different people that are doing the different kind of work. And another thing that I recommend is that sometimes people think that as a marine biologist you spend a lot of time in the ocean, and sometimes we do, but a lot of the time we are literally in front of our computer just doing data analysis and writing papers. So knowing a few things and learning new skills on data analysis is huge. So if you have the chance to take a class, or there's a lot of resources and tutorials online, so if you can learn a little bit about how you can do data analysis, that can be very helpful. And also writing. We have to write a lot. You have to write for grants, and you have to write for different applications, for fellowships, and of course, one of the big things is that we're able to publish a lot of the science we do, so there's a lot of writing in that. So, working on some of these skills can be extremely important and can offer you a lot of opportunities. And I just want to end with this quote by Sylvia Earle. She's a marine biologist, and she says, "No water, no life. No blue, no green. Our oceans are extremely important, and we as a society depend on them. So more than ever, it's really important that we all work together to better protect our oceans. So I just want to encourage anyone that is interested and passionate about the oceans to continue to be that way and to learn as much as they can about the ocean and find ways that they can volunteer or help out different organizations or in your school, because right now is a critical time where we have to do our best to protect our ocean.